Hi, everybody. Welcome. It's not the Perkins of Astrology. We're continuing on with our talks about Aquarius. Last week, if you missed it, we talked about the transition between Capricorn and Aquarius and how these two signs get really enmeshed with one another and therefore enmeshed within ourselves because we're all acting out these psychological human archetypes all the time. We're just using astrology as your tool for getting in and understanding. So it's like killing two birds with one stone. You're learning astrology and you are also self-inquiring so that you can see, how do these archetypes show up within me? How am I working with them? Some of us have really strong experiences with these archetypes because we have a lot of them in our chart. And some of us don't understand these archetypes at all because we have planets like Saturn in Aquarius, or we have Chiron in Aquarius. Usually there are markers that say, this means that you're working on how to understand this archetype. And that would be Saturn, Chiron, North Node. But for the most part, when we're talking about Aquarius, we're talking about relationships, but it's not our personal, intimate relationships. It's our relationships with the people. We live in a world. We are not isolated. We are surrounded by the people all the time. And, the people can be a really difficult group to work with and contend with. It's the slow people in front of you at the grocery store that have no self-awareness, no spatial awareness. They leave their cart parked right in the middle of the aisle so nobody can get through. It's the people stepping on the gas, weaving in and out of traffic, being essentially a menace on the roads. It's the periphery, the people that are sitting around you in the restaurant, the colleagues that you don't have a lot of connection with, or maybe you do have connection with. Aquarius is also about our friends and our circles and the people that we are relating with. The thing that's so difficult about Aquarius is that it represents the people in our lives that we have no control over. When we're in intimate partnership, we can decide, I am done with you, I'm breaking up with you, I'm leaving you, or I don't want to speak with you and I'm making a conscious effort not to answer the phone. Or I love you, I want to be with you, I want to spend time with you, I relate to you. But a lot of times with Aquarius in general, we're just talking about the people that are there. So I'm going to go through all of the facets of Aquarius over the next few weeks. I always find this to be an interesting sign, one that brings up a lot of frustration for people. And we're also going to be looking at themes of rebellion and conformity in another episode. We're looking at who you are and who you have to be when you're around those people in another episode. For today, we're going to be talking just a general overview of Aquarius. And now that Pluto has moved into Aquarius for good for the next 20 years, we're going to be looking at some of the darker sides of people, of how we relate to being a part of a collective, especially being a part of a collective that we have no control over. This always comes up for me in readings when I'm talking about Aquarius or the ruling planet Uranus. And of course, Saturn is the traditional ruler of Aquarius. But this general frustration of wanting things to be equal, wanting everybody to be on an equal footing or in agreement, and how that's never going to happen. It's impossible in a collective for everybody to agree on the same thing, for every single person to be on equal footing. And a lot of that is because we all have different potentials, different levels of intelligence, different backgrounds, different cultures, different cultural expectations. So we do not come to the game on equal footing. And especially now, I think especially since we've gone through everything we've gone through since 2020, and that's become so apparent. There have been many political groups that have tried to equalize everything, sort of. They say they're trying to equalize everything, and back behind the scenes, they want to make sure they have as much for themselves as possible. But that's another topic entirely, and one that I think that we will see addressed as Pluto, the great transformer or the great awakener, moves through Aquarius, is we will begin to see where we are all indeed on even playing ground, because the truth is we're all humans. And we all share a ton of characteristics. When we're talking about astrology as an organizing tool for the human psyche, hey, that's what we're doing. We're all working to communicate. We all want love on some level. We all have to deal with money. So there is a sense of we all come to the table with a lot of the same tools, but how we use those tools is going to be completely different. And we'll be facing the shadow of that as we move through these next 20 years. So the easiest thing for you to do is to start self-inquiring. How do I relate to the masses? What is my role here? So go ahead and take a deep breath into that question, because that's going to be one of the primary questions that you'll be asking yourself for the next 20 years. By the way, if you're new here, the next section of this talk is a edited version of a season 5 podcast episode from Star Narratives, my podcast. I'm re-releasing them all. I'm editing them, bringing them here to you on YouTube so that it's a standalone body of work. You can go to Astrology for Awakening, and I'm going to be covering all of the sun signs. And I'm currently doing an asteroid series, and we are talking about the asteroid Vesta. So make sure that you tune into that one, because that's a really potent asteroid to know about. And essentially, these are the energies that are within you. These are ways to understand yourself better. So if you like my style and you want a private reading, electraastrology.com. And I'm also starting an astro cohort that begins February 2nd. So if you want to join me there, check it out, electraastrology.com, and let's get started. So I'll be talking about a facet of Aquarius this week, which is, by the way, all about relationships. So we're going to be looking at how you show up in public with the people that you have to navigate the world with. So a question that I posed to my astrology circle, well, it was multiple questions. And the questions sounded a lot like, who are you when you're alone? Who are you when you are around your coworkers or colleagues? Who are you when you are around your family of origin or creation? And who are you when you are just out in public? Because what you'll find is that there are very different versions of the self that show up depending on who you're around. And Aquarius is a relationship sign. All of the air signs are relational signs. When we look at Aquarius, this is about our relationship with the people, being in a group, being out in public, being part of a general collective, part of a neighborhood, part of a society, part of a culture. And we all know that there are versions of self that show up with these kinds of relationships that are different. We are usually very different in public than we are back at home. We are different with people that we don't know versus people that we know. And some of this comes down to the rising sign. You can look at your rising sign to get a really good sense of how you show up. What do you want people to think about you before they get to know you? We all have our facade. We all have our bouncer at the door. And while that, yes, is the rising sign, it also relates to this Aquarius 11th house archetype. So I'll start off by talking about something that I've seen a lot lately. When it comes to social media, the idea is that the more views, the more viral one goes, the better. Because when people have their eyes on your stuff, then you can sell things. But what happens pretty consistently when there are multiple views or something goes viral and gets millions of views is that the trolls come out. People come out and leave the nastiest comments. People have things to say that are very hurtful. And we've all seen that happen on our different social media platforms. When there's something that's released out to the general public, the criticisms begin to come. It's as if there's a permission to do that. And even if we're not looking at social media and we're looking at things like celebrity culture, and we know how judgmental the general public can be of celebrities. The general public can also revere celebrities. And when something goes viral on social media, there is a lot of admiration that comes as well, a lot of positive comments. But we look at this idea of how people work with, speak to, see, judge other people, and what's okay and what's not okay. If you think about what you personally would feel comfortable saying to somebody through the comments section as an anonymous person, what you would feel comfortable saying about somebody out in public behind their back, right? We've all been there where we see a parent with a screaming child and we're very critical. You know, if that were my child, I would do this very differently. Or we see somebody that has a body type that doesn't fit into body that we all are supposed to approve of and we criticize them, or somebody's wearing dirty clothes. Like we all do this. We all feel as if there's something to judge about the people around us. Usually we keep quiet. Usually we either think it in our heads or we share it with the people that are around us that we know. But there are places where it is okay to be insulting. And through a keyboard is one of those places. And behind the wheel is another one of those places. And when I say it's okay, I don't mean that it is socially acceptable. It's not really, but people get a little loosey-goosey with how they treat others. What I want you to think about as I'm doing this teaching today is how you are out in public in general. How do you speak to people? How do you perceive people? How do you relate to people? A lot of us are like, I hate people. I just hate people. People annoy me. And I think that that's pretty typical, especially as we become more and more populated and we're around more people that are different than we are. But that's part of what Aquarius is here to teach us about, is it is about looking at our relationships to people. I talked about this last week. When we are judging somebody else for something, usually there's some nugget that is within us that we are also judging ourselves about. People project things like jealousy and envy and criticism onto other people. But it's important to understand how we're relating to all of these people. The more that we understand it, the more tolerance we can have. And you've heard me say that we watched through 2020, 2021, those 2 years in particular, we watched how the group, the pack, has influence on the rest of the pack. We saw how, although it was unspoken, there was an idea that we were all supposed to be doing the exact same thing, that we're all supposed to have the same standards, the same beliefs, the same ways of doing things. And Uranus, Aquarius, is an energy of social change. So take a deep breath, land right here in your body, in the present moment. One of the issues with Aquarius is that it is an air sign. So there is a lot of overthinking, a lot of comparison, a lot of needing objectivity. And in order to get objectivity, we have to have distance and space from these people around us, these people that we get enmeshed with and we get merged with simply by virtue of being a community. So many of us, and especially those that would be listening to this podcast, are very emotionally permeable. We feel energy. We feel things about people, even if they are not speaking to us. We get an energetic sense. And so when you can come into the present moment, come into your body, just take a few deep breaths, it is a way of separating yourself from the group, from the people around you. Because with Aquarius, we are learning how to be objective. We are learning how to hold those relationships at a bit of an arm's length so that we can inspect them. It's like when you pick up a bag of grapes. You're holding the grapes out and you're looking at them to see, do these look like good grapes? You're not holding them right up against your face. Aquarius is the individualist. We are a part of a group, but we are also unique individuals within that group. Taking the time to separate yourself is a really potent piece of working this archetype and working it well, because this is an archetype of brilliance. It is one where we tap into our own genius to understand, first of all, people. If you understand why people are the way they are, you can act on the cutting edge. You can intuit what's going on. You can duck and dodge in a really efficient way. You can separate yourself from toxic energy, toxic groups, and you can push yourself into the groups and the circles that you know you want more from, that you know they have something to teach you or something to make your life better. So we're learning a lot with Aquarius. We're learning a lot about observing people, looking at different demographics, not with criticism and judgment, but with interest, with curiosity. We are learning how to reach out and establish contact with the right people and how to close the ranks around the people and the groups that aren't serving you. So a lot of this will come down to having the discernment to know what kind of media to listen to, what kind of conversations to get into. There's something very artful about people that know how to get in and out of uncomfortable conversations without causing a huge disruption. You've seen those people in your life. There's a way that they just divert something uncomfortable and the flow keeps going. And that is what we're learning how to do with Aquarius. We're learning how to make difficult things, things that don't work well, in this case, especially social dynamics. We're learning how to smooth those things over so that we can all coexist without slipping into chaos. Next week, I'm going to talk a lot about conformity versus rebellion, which is a huge piece of this archetype. But what I want to focus on for right now is the idea that Aquarius is improving energy. I believe it was my friend, astrologer Lisa Salvatore, that said Uranus leaves you better than when it found you. Uranus is the planet that rules Aquarius. So we always optimize with this energy. We look at our relationship to the people in our lives, to the groups, to the general public, and we say, instead of just complaining about how annoying these people are, instead of just being stressed out about everything that's going on around me that I can't control with people that are different than me, how can I optimize it? How can I make it better? How can I ensure that as a human living on this earth, not being able to go anywhere else other than this earth for the next X amount of years, how can I ensure that I am enjoying people, that I'm really making the most of it, that I am experiencing a sense of freedom in being around navigating the world instead of a sense of oppression, a sense of frustration. We've all had those experiences where we go out, the noises are too loud, people don't smell good, they are not cooperating. Think of yourself in the line for security at the airport. How can you make situations like that better for yourself? What do you need to do in order to break the molds of what you have always thought when it comes to dealing with a collective, dealing with a neighborhood, dealing with a family? So these are big questions. And this is an interesting time to be looking at relationships and how you navigate through the world. Are your wheels greased or are you rolling around on a flat tire? All right. I hope this was helpful.